What's up? Welcome in to Foxboro Rush. I'm George Balekji. In this episode, we have a very, very special guest, Mark Herzlich, All-American at Boston College, Super Bowl winning linebacker with the New York Giants. Mark, thanks so much for joining the show, man. This is going to be a fun one.
Hey, it's great. We just talked beforehand. You live in the same town I live in. We're going to have to grab dinner together. It's going to be nice.
I was
nice
going to
little relationship we're building right now in this hour.
Exactly. We both lived in New Jersey. You lived 20 minutes from me when you were with the Giants, and now we both live in Charlestown, like a 5-minute walk. I love it. It's budding. From the podcast, we'll be catching a bite, around the monument sometime soon.
Yeah, 100%.
So, Mark, I want to start off with, I know you're working with the ACC Network again this upcoming season, but we're going to talk a lot of NFL, of course. We'll talk your BC Eagles, too. But as you've seen, over the years, just watching the NFL, especially this season, I know we have a 1-week sample size, but what's jumped out to you of the evolution you've seen in the NFL, going from your last playing days in 2016, 2017 to now where we are in 2024?
Well, it's funny. I saw like an evolution during my playing days, and we all saw it, right? Yeah. When I came in, part of my rookie class, there was a fullback in my recruiting class, right? in my rookie class. Like, that's a change, right? It just means you're playing different types of offenses. The whole college system was not in the NFL yet when I first started, and then it slowly progressed into it. And by 2018, when I was out, now we're seeing pockets of it, but it really hadn't infiltrated the NFC East as much yet, right? And so now I think every single division has gotten a piece of that. Hey, we're going to have a mobile quarterback. We're going to get outside the pocket. To me, I think the reason why I love watching NFL football is because of the strategy. And right, like, I love watching quarterback play, dropping back and passing the football. Maybe I'm just like old school, but like, I don't love the, like, we're going to sprint out and limit your options. We're going to only have you read half the field as a quarterback. We're going to have it be all RPO. To me, it just feels like you're playing Madden and you're just running like 4 verts the whole game and throwing it the same. Like, it's that type of thing where it's like, it feels gimmicky at times. So that being said, like, I know we're gonna get to Patriots. Like, I loved going back old school, right? With Jacoby and Stevenson, like, running the football, defensive line, offensive line. And it's funny doing college stuff right now. So many coaches are having success going away from the spread offense, and they're saying, okay, well, now it's been 10 years of the spread offense, and now teams know how to defend it. We're seeing the safeties doing multiple reads coming in the box. So how can we just drop back with a pocket passer and pick dudes apart? So I think it's funny. Like, you don't think you're going to live through like an entire cycle, but if you look at fashion, everybody's wearing like baggy jeans and baggy t-shirts. Like, that's what I wore in elementary school, right? I mean, that's what that's what 90s fashion was. And now let's bring it back. So, hey, football's on the same trend.
Fashion is a cycle. Football is a cycle. I agree with that. Even you think of like the top quarterback prospect right now that's in this next upcoming draft, it's Carson Beck. He's athletic. That's an underrated part of his game. But in that Georgia system, it's downhill, running the football, and then a lot happens from there. You're going to love the matchup we're about to talk about between the Seahawks and the Patriots too, Mark, because it's two teams that are going to run the ball and win with defense. When you watch these offenses now, and you kind of touched on it, being a guy that played on the edge would also play in the box, is that something where you diagnose, game to game, week to week of like, this is how to attack this quarterback, this is how to attack this offense that you watch on Sundays?
Yeah, 100%. And like, anytime you're prepping for a quarterback, the first thing is, okay, what are their threats, right? Like, say you're playing a Tom Brady, okay, his brain is his first threat, right? He's got a great arm and all that stuff, but you're defending his brain and his knowledge. If you're playing against a Kyler Murray, right? That's not your first threat. His first threat is his legs and his mobile arm and the ability to roll out to his left and make crazy passes. So, like, for those types of guys, right, we got to match that intensity with our athleticism and with our multiplicity and the different things. So, like, I think anytime that I'm preparing for a quarterback, I'm saying, okay, this is what you do great, and then this is what I do great. I mean, I think that's part of it too. Like, anytime defensive coordinators only game plan for the opponent, you're seeing like them play away from what their talents are. But the good coordinators and the good players will be like, oh, cool, like, we're going against a mobile quarterback or we're going against a pocket passer. But if we change our entire identity to stop that, then we're going to be splintered as a defense. So when you can like hone that in and you can say, okay, we are going to be a tough physical defense. Literally every coach says that. Every coach says we're going to be a tough physical defense. But how many teams actually play tough physical football and like tackle guys down on the first time and don't like arm tackle and dive? So again, these are just like defensive gripes always. But that's how you go into the game. You say, okay, we're going to attack this guy in a certain way, and when you get it right and it fits your system, then you have a lot of success.
You had to have watched loving those Patriots pull off that stunner over the Bengals because they were a great tackling team. What we saw on Sunday, rush 3 or 4, the pressure got to him with a guy like Keion White, and that's how they beat Joe Burrow, a guy that was never comfortable. But you touch on it of like how you read these quarterbacks and what their weaknesses are. What's your scouting report? It's been one game with Alex Van Pelt, but what's your scouting report on Jacoby Brissett?
Look, he's a vet, right? If I'm preparing for a vet, I'm saying, okay, this guy is not going to make mistakes, and you saw it in the game. Like there were times where he was like, okay, I don't have anything open. I'm going to throw it away, or I'm going to try to get back to the line of scrimmage and take a sack. But I'm going to not turn the ball over. And, game manager, whatever you want to call it, like you want a game manager as your quarterback. That means he can manage the game. Like that's the whole thing. So I like Jacoby. I think he's not going to make the wow plays. I think that you're not going to rely on him to win the game for you. But he's a guy you can trust to not lose the game for you too. And not turning the ball over is the number one thing for a quarterback. He did a fantastic job of that. And then when you have an offensive line playing the way they do, when you have a running back playing the way the Patriots do, you don't try to change it up until you have to. Like it'd be interesting if that Bengals game was different, right? What if the Bengals scored on the first 2 opening drives? Then you can't just do the ground game the whole time. Then you have to open it up. And I think that's the question that Pats fans have right now. It's like, okay, we got Drake May in the waiting. We've seen what he's been able to do. I mean, I studied him a lot when he was at UNC, and I, gone through his whole film, talked to his coaches, and like this guy he's gonna be a franchise quarterback. I think Pats fans are like, okay, but when? And not until we see Jacoby Brissett having to make those throws downfield to win the game. I think like if he can do that once or twice, like if he comes out versus the Seahawks and he makes some of those big third down passes down the field, he has like, a 2-minute drive where you're like, man, like this guy can play the whole season. Like that, I think that's what Pats fans are waiting to see from him. And like, this is an opportunity.
Certainly. And like you said, too, I mean, the game came to him and he made big plays. Like the Patriots defense didn't allow first down until the Bengals' 5th drive of the game. And then go to Jacoby Brissett, their last scoring drive with a Joey Sly field goal, 2 key third down conversions that got him into field goal range to score. Love this breakdown so far, Mark. Love where this episode's going. Let's bring a guest we have in lined up. He's Keagan Stiefel of NESN.com. He's been covering the Patriots all summer long, so let's bring him on in. Keagan, welcome to Foxboro Rush, man.
I feel like I might ruin this little rapport you guys have going, but it's a pleasure to be on. Mark, we talked a little bit before the show. I'm excited to talk some football.
Yeah, hey. Anyone with that quality of a mustache can welcome into this rapport of any time. I love it. And I feel like you need to hear it because men are going to be the only one who comes up to you and say, I love your mustache. Because men respect other men with mustaches much more than women respect men with mustaches, but I respect you incredibly. So
Mark Herzlich respects me. That's all I need. It's enough to keep it going.
The bromance levels are off the charts right now in this pod. Keeg, you heard Mark talking about like how he views Jacoby Brissett, what he watches in today's NFL, but getting into this matchup, and I think this is one that's going to be so interesting to see because it was a pocket passer in Joe Burrow and a Bengals team that couldn't really run the ball, and with a bad run defense, this is going to be identical teams in this matchup. Veteran QBs, strong run games with rookie head coaches, and 2 defenses that want to win at the line of scrimmage. Keagan, what jumps out to you for Sunday of what you think is going to be a key piece for the Patriots to find success?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a little bit in our previous show together, George, where I really wanted to see them kind of develop the play-action game a little bit and start to throw the ball. But when you start looking at Seattle and what they do well, like you're going to have to run the ball against this team. I'm just not sure if they're going to be able to. We talked about Byron Murphy. We talked about Leonard Williams. These are 2 guys that are kind of game breakers along the defensive front. And with the questions the Patriots have on the offensive line, are they going to be able to block that up enough to where they can develop that play action, or are they going to have to go in with a similar game plan that they did against Cincinnati, just playing a stouter defense? That's really the question. Are they going to try to do the same things against a tougher defense, or are they going to change what they're doing? I'm kind of on the fence there. I don't really know what their plan's going to be, but I would expect them to try to throw a few wrinkles in there, especially against that front seven, a really tough front seven, to try to move the ball and maybe stay ahead of the chains a little bit than they did last week.
Yeah, and I think when you think about play actions, you want to create a big play, right? Big plays are football is all about. You don't turn the ball over, you get big plays. I think one of the things their defense did really well against Joe Burrow, right, who is so good at creating the big plays, was they limited it, right? And so, like, what would you see from the Pats, especially their defensive backfield, that would indicate that they can limit some of those big plays when you have, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and Jackson Smith and Digbo on the outside? Like, those guys are threats. What did you see in that first game that gives you confidence in their ability to limit those?
DeMarcus Covington, first-year defensive coordinator, he's creative, and we saw it early. He was rolling coverages left and right early in the game on Sunday. In the first series alone, Christian Gonzalez, who's supposed to be their lockdown outside cornerback, right, give him the one-on-one matchup against the other team's best receiver, they were rolling him back in cover 2. He was playing safety. Marcus Jones, who is your top nickel corner, he was playing safety early, before the play even started. He was giving Joe Burrow different looks, kind of. What they were trying to do essentially is take away half the field from Burrow. They did that. I think it was the first third down of the game. Gonzalez drops back at safety in cover 2, and Jalen Hawkins, who is one of their safeties, was up on the line of scrimmage showing blitz. He fell back, kind of covered up, took away the throwing window to Jamar Chase, cut off half the field for the Bengals. So I think they're going to do a lot of that with DK Metcalf. They're going to try to take him away, take away the primary read, and then force the other guys to beat them. This is something that Bill Belichick always did, and we're seeing it out of DeMarcus Covington, obviously with Gerard Mayo having a big part of the game plan aspect of what they're doing on defense. I think they're going to continue to do stuff like that, disguise the coverage, kind of take away half the field from the quarterback.
Yeah, and I feel like something that's underrated with the Patriots defense is the consistency, because everyone going, why are you hiring a defensive-minded head coach? Gerard Mayo elevated, and he took his D-line coach and DeMarcus Covington and said, it's your show now. You're running the defense. He's letting AVP run the offense in this one too. It's important to see of like how that secondary played, but also up front, Keegan, do you think Keion White, Joshua Uche can have that same sort of success? This is a good Seahawks team. Right tackles are a big question mark. We'll see if George Fant's back. We'll see if it's Stone Forsythe. But do you think this is another game where those two, or just that group up front, can have success against Seattle?
Absolutely. You talked about the similarities earlier with the Patriots and the Seahawks. That's another one where they have questions on the offensive line, not just whether the guys who are out there can get the job done, but who is going to be out there. A lot of injuries early in the year already for both sides. So Keion White, we've talked about it. Mark hasn't heard my Keion White diatribe.
Share it.
Give it to me, baby.
I said I think he can reach a Myles Garrett level of defender on the edge. Is that insane? Probably. It's probably a little insane, but I think he can be one of the very best in the NFL, and going into another week where he's going to be able to, and this is one that I wanted to share with George, and I didn't get to throw it out there, but if you saw J.J. Watt, and I'm not comparing the two, so let's cut it off right there.
Oh, cut it off at J.J. Watt, not Myles Garrett.
No, but I'll say, J.J. Watt, throughout his career, the Texans let him do this thing where he would just test each offensive lineman early in the game and then be like, that's the weakest link. I'm going to attack him all day. Whether it's the left guard, the right tackle, whatever. The Patriots did that with Keion White last week. They let him play all over the front, and then he really kind of settled in playing 3-eye against, I believe it was the right or left guard. I forget which one it was. And he feasted. He had 2.5 sacks. So if they're going to allow him to do that again this week, just really let him play the matchup and then fill in the gaps around him because they have so much depth on the defensive front. I think he can have another big week.
It's kind of interesting to think about that like concept going into a game.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's so interesting. Like coaches try to over prep and like over plan. They're always like, we're going to create this matchup. But how cool is it when you get to like let your guy dictate the matchup?
Yeah.
You get Keion White, you say, okay, yeah, we have these plays and all these plays, but we're gonna let you go and prove it, right? Or you're gonna go make the offensive lineman prove that they can block you. And I mean, I could just imagine being an offensive lineman standing there and be like, dang, like I'm up. Like it's my turn for Keion White.
Most important rep of your life early in the game, right?
And the NFL is so much of a, hey, if you see that weakness, if you see that chink in the armor, you just go after it. And that's Gerard Mayo. I mean, being the linebacker, that guy on the defense who was calling those plays. I mean, I think what people don't understand, so like it's not a majority of the plays, but I'd say 20% of the plays during an NFL game is actually called just by the middle linebacker because your thing goes out in your helmet, or you don't get the call right, or they're going fast and you're calling the plays. So like he knows what his favorite plays are, and like he knew what he was good at. So I think it's kind of cool from that player mentality of like, all right, we can go out there and let you do what you're really good at. I think one of the things that we didn't see that much of was pressure coming from the second level, whether it was linebackers or safeties on really designated passing downs. It'd be interesting to see, like, if they don't get there with the front four, like, what are their answers? What have you seen from them in terms of, hey, what are the answers in terms of second level guys who could really have a knack getting for the quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, with what they have left, I think it's probably Kyle Duggar. And you have a little bit more depth in the defensive backfield than you did in past years. So I think they're going to try to let him loose a little bit. He's one of their best players overall, not just defensively. So allowing him to play at all three levels and have an impact, in the passing game against the run, maybe blitzing. Kyle Duggar's probably that guy. They signed Sion Takitaki this offseason to replace Mac Wilson, who was that guy last year. Takitaki hasn't played. He's been on the pup all offseason, and he's still there. So Duggar's probably the answer. Jabril Peppers is obviously, if I look at a guy, who do I want out there blitzing the quarterback? It's Jabril Peppers. It's a guy, obviously, with the Giants. You saw a lot of him. Insane football player. He's not the type that's going to go out there and, be timid. So two guys at the safety position, and if they can count on Hawkins and Gonzalez and Jones to play a little bit of safety, that might help them make those decisions where they can blitz from the third level, not just the second level, because I think they really do like having Bentley and Tavai in the middle. That's really the two guys that they want. They know they can count on them. You know what I mean? So taking them out of a play by blitzing, I don't think they're super comfortable by doing that. But if you want to throw Kyle Duggar out there, absolutely.
Kyle Duggar's that guy at the build. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah. So you talk about Jabril Peppers. I wanted to get your take on it real quick, just because I haven't heard anyone talk about it. But what do you think about him wearing that, like, soft shell helmet? Like, what is Boston saying about that?
I don't think I've seen a ton about it, but he did say it'll allow him to play faster. I didn't know he could play faster, but if you want any guy playing at top speed, it's Jabril Peppers. So if he feels more comfortable with it, all the power to him. I don't think I really noticed it during the game. I did, when I'm writing my articles after the game, when I'm looking for pictures, I saw one, and it looked a little goofy, but if that allows him to be safer, or allows anybody else to be safer, I know there's a Colts tight end who's wearing it. There's an offensive lineman for, I believe, Arizona that's wearing it. If you think that allows you to play faster and you can be as safe as possible, go for it. Who am I to judge?
Yeah, Mark, I like you pointed that out. Watching the game, I saw it, and I was like, oh, Jabril's wearing a Guardian cap. But I didn't notice it until, like, the second quarter. And I know you'll get the close-up. You'll be like, what the heck? But, again, like, it doesn't stand out bad. I'm all for it. If it makes the game safer and we get better defensive play, which I know, Mark, you're all for, I'm all for him wearing that.
Yeah. Well, I kind of agree. It's interesting. Like, there was a point in time, I think it was my second or third year in the league, around 2011 or 12, where they started – like changing helmets. Like you couldn't have that old Rydell helmet anymore. And I remember some guys like would not get rid of it. Like they just did. They were like, I don't care.
Antonio Brown famously. Yeah. He left the Raiders because he wouldn't get rid of it.
Exactly. But like, I think it's interesting, and maybe it's education of players, maybe it's education of the fans, but like that looks dumb. It just does. Yeah. It looks so dumb. But at the same time, it's like, all right, if this dude's balling out and he's playing, and like also we could have him for maybe another year,
right?
Like on top of it, like he's not going to get concussions. I mean, I dealt with concussions, and like when you miss it, when you have a guy who misses a game because of concussions, that could be prevented by that. Like, I mean, that's like pretty good. And I feel like as a fan base, people are probably like, oh, like that's soft. I mean, that's how Bostonians are, right? I mean, like that's soft, but it's smart. Like, and you're like, all right, we can get one of our best players on the field. Anyways, I was just interested.
Peppers did miss some time with a concussion last year. So I think the way he looks at it, it hurts him a lot more missing football games than it does looking a little bit goofy. So I don't think he really cares how he looks.
And he's probably the last guy in that Patriots locker room you can call soft. Mark, I bet you've heard of him when you were with the Giants, when he was at Don Bosco prepping Paramus Catholic, coming up through high school, winning 4 state championships, being the #1 player in the country, and then going to Michigan. I wouldn't be surprised if you did hear about him.
How could you not hear about him? Of course I heard about him. He was like, he was what he played linebacker and running back and punt return
everywhere.
He was like doing everything. So I was in the NFL. I was with the Giants, but you still hear about like the best players, or like, wait, this guy's up for the Heisman. He's a linebacker. Like, you notice that type of stuff. So yeah, I mean, like I freaking love how he plays. He's an animal, and yeah, to your point, like you miss time with a concussion already. You don't want to miss time. So,
Yeah, I think we see that in a guy that plays downhill, and if he can play as hard as he wants to, which he does, that brings out the best in this defense. Mark, one thing I want to ask you, and Keegan, I would like to hear what you have to say about Mark's take on this. When you approach a team like the Seahawks, we know how talented Geno Smith is moving around the pocket. We know how good his receivers are. The Ryan Grubb system coming from UW to Seattle. But Mike McDonald, the head coach, is like, no, we're still running the ball. Like, they won on Sunday with 84 rushing yards of Kenneth Walker's total coming in the second half. As a guy that's lining up at linebacker and can play all over, how do you have your responsibilities divvied out against an offense like that where you can't let that quarterback get time, but obviously you know how big of a threat that run game is?
Well, I think it's about your eyes, right? Like anytime it is a pass and you're in man-to-man, and if I'm playing the Seahawks and we go into some sort of man coverage where we're having one linebacker be kind of a middle hole player and the other linebacker's on the running back. If Kenneth Walker flinches like he's going to block, like I'm sending that linebacker. We call it like the running back will have pressure pickup, but you're keying the running back for if he does not go out for a pass right now, I'm converting this into a blitz. Because what you do, you eat him up because he's going to read you. If you're blitzing, he's blocking. You're reading him. If he's going out for a pass, then you're covering him. So if you can dictate that, then you can get that added pressure. And it's like a simulated pressure because it's not called in the huddle, but you're allowed to. But you can get one more guy in that pass rush. So I think that's a big part of it is like, yes, if you're in man-to-man coverage at linebacker, and especially on that second level where you need to be gap sound, you key off your guy and you come downhill and you fill your gap. When you're going to bring a safety in the box, you got one gap. If you got pullers, you got to adjust to it. But if I'm keying the same thing when I'm reading run and reading pass, it allows me to dictate that much faster. Like, if you're playing a cover 3 zone, which you get that run fake, it's like, man, I got to get down on my run fake, but then it's like turn and burn. It's like I'm got to find someone in my zone back behind me. So I think to me that's one way to really attack this team, especially just in the front seven, because Kenneth Walker, he is also a good receiver, so they could get him involved in the pass game as well, and especially the screen game. So I could see that being a way where they attack that. But 100%, and Gerard Mayo said this already, it's like they're going to run the football and they're going to stop the run. So their number one goal is to stop the run. And like, let's put it in perspective. And I love Geno Smith. I played with Geno Smith. But Geno Smith has been a backup in the NFL for a long time, right? And so he's a very good player and he deserves to be the starter of this Seahawks team, especially with what he did last year. But if you were able to stop Joe Burrow from passing the ball and creating explosive plays, it's like you can stop Geno Smith from making explosive plays, right? So I think you could go in a pretty similar format as you did last week.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, with like rolling coverage and stuff like that, we talk a lot about offenses and the eye candy, the motions, whatever it is. That's what the Patriots did last week. A lot of eye candy, just kind of throwing a wrench in things for the Bengals. If they can do that same thing against the Seahawks, obviously better receiving core than what the Bengals rolled out there last week, but if the quarterback can't even take his eyes off of one or two people, you don't have to worry about the rest of them, right? We talk a lot about the reads with the Patriots last week, and Jalen Polk wasn't getting the ball because he was the last read on whatever play they were running. You can do the same thing with the Seahawks. You can play into an advantage defensively, and like you said with Kenneth Walker, he's a big physical back, and that idea of, if he flinches a little bit, like he might be waiting for you to come, you go, lay a little hit on him, get kind of, not bang him up, but
tire him out.
You want to make him exert as much energy as possible.
We're talking defense football here.
Bang him up. Like, take him out at the knees. Who knows?
Well, yeah, you don't need to do a cheap shot. Like, this is a thing that I'm always like, let's not tiptoe around. This is a violent game. Like,
right.
My goal every single play was to hurt my opponent. Like, let that sink in. Not injure them. I don't want to be out of the game, but I need to hurt them. Because by the time the fourth quarter rolls around, I need to be the one that's hammering them. So I think you're exactly right. Like, you hit him. Make him feel that. It's not just a regular rep.
If he's going to try to get to the edge in the fourth quarter, right, to ice the game on a third down, but he had 3, 4, 5 extra hits because he had to stay in pass protection, and Jawan Bentley, all 245 pounds of him, came downhill at him, that might give you an edge. So I think that's a great kind of little wrinkle. You don't see it from a non-player perspective, but obviously you saying that's kind of something the defenses throw in there. Absolutely. If you can do that against him, all the power to you.
Hey, Keegan, with a strong mustache, Mark's telling you to play strong,
That's right.
Hey, yeah, exactly. I mean, like, it's the same type of thing with quarterbacks, right? Like, I remember we played the Jets, and I was talking with Mark Sanchez about this about a year ago. Like, we were doing something together in the TV space, and he was like, you remember you played us? I forget, it was like 2015 or something. And they were implementing, like, the ride and decide offense, right? So the quarterback would kind of fake it, and then he would fake run. Well, I asked my coach, like, hey, is it legal to hit him because he's pretending to be a runner? He said, yeah, you can hit him because he is running without the football, but he is simulating being a runner. So our game plan was, we're going to hit him every time he does that. Like, we're going to hit him. Like, we're not going to do anything illegal, but he will feel it. Yeah. And he was like, I didn't want to run that play anymore because it was like, I'm just getting wasted. This is a waste of my physical ability right now. Mm-hmm. And so the same thing when running backs are blocking. Like, when you see a running back get pancaked when he's trying to step up in a hole and he gets run over, like, he might have gotten the block, the defender might not have gotten a sack, but he remembers that. Mm-hmm. And then so the next time, I mean, he's like, God, man, stop calling that play. Like, I can't keep taking on these linebackers. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that, for them, it exerts their energy, and it takes a little bit out of them, and especially a guy like Kenneth Walker is someone the Seahawks want to lean on in the second half, either going for or trying to protect the lead against the Patriots. He's Keagan Stiefel, the man with the strong mustache, according to Mark Herzlich, and I gotta confirm that and back that up as well. Keeks, thanks so much for hopping on Rush, man. Appreciate you.
I'm putting that on a T-shirt, by the way. I'll be wearing it for the next episode. I'll see you guys later.
Appreciate you, Keeks. We now have Will Manso joining Foxboro Rush. He's a sports director at WPLG down in Miami. Thursday night football, great week 2 matchup, 2 explosive offenses with the Dolphins hosting the Bills. Will, when you look into this matchup, what's a part that you are focusing on, especially with the Dolphins team that came off a thrilling comeback at home last week against the Jaguars?
Yeah. Normally with a matchup, you look at the team itself, right? What they're doing, what they like to do. And the Dolphins obviously are led by their offense and Tua and Mike McDaniel's system and the weapons they have, Tyreek Hill. But I think in this particular matchup, guys, it always starts with Josh Allen and how are the Dolphins finally going to figure out a way to slow him down. Even when Josh Allen was a rookie early on, when he was struggling in his career trying to find himself, he had success against Miami. They've won 11-12 against the Dolphins. Allen has only lost to him one time after that rookie season. Tua has had all kinds of struggles against them. They had the chance last year to win a division. They didn't. So I actually focus more on how can this defense find a way to slow down Josh Allen and allow the offense to make some plays and find a way to finally beat the Bills.
So what do you think the best way is, right? What if you were calling the plays, if you were implementing the thing, like what would you do?
And that's the hard thing, right? Because you talk to those guys all the time. And Mike McDaniel talked about it on Monday. I asked him specifically about that, and he said, look, it's different personnel. It's not like it's been all the same guys in the last 4 or 5 years, not just coaching, but on the field. So the question now becomes, you're right, how do you do it? Look, Josh Allen's one of the best players in the NFL for a reason. He's an MVP candidate for a reason. He's a superstar for a reason. But I think trying to find a way to keep him in the pocket. I know every coach says that. I know every analyst says that. Trying to find a way to keep him in the pocket, not running loose, because he had so much success against Miami with his legs. We saw it in week 1 and their comeback against Arizona as well, him using his legs. It's easier said than done, but they have to find some sort of way to start to do it because it hasn't worked the last 5-6 years.
It's important you jump out of like the containment. We saw Jalen Phillips with a couple big plays against the Jaguars. It's good to see him healthy and on the field. But then we also see Jalen Ramsey like getting burned on the outside by Brian Thomas Jr., who's a great receiver, but Jalen Ramsey is supposed to be one of the top corners. I mentioned that to ask Will, like, how healthy is this Dolphins defense right now, especially leading into such a pivotal week? It's just week 2, but these are the last 2 teams to have won the AFC East, so we know how big every matchup between them is.
Yeah, and I think, too, the question of health, certainly with the Dolphins, becomes more toward the offense. Let's talk about the defense first. Jalen Ramsey working his way back. He had that hamstring injury / contract dispute going on in camp, and it miraculously healed, and he played in week 1. Jalen's still at a high level. He did get burned, but he also made a big play on a 4th and 1 where he crossed the field, made a big tackle. I think with Jalen, you know what you get there. I think, Kendall Fuller, I think with their guys, they feel comfortable with Jalen Phillips, who looks phenomenal, 10 months removed from Achilles surgery to look the way he did. They're still missing Bradley Chubb. He's on the way back. I think, guys, it turns to offense. They're missing two big pieces potentially. They won't have Raheem Mostert. Mike McDaniel announced that this morning. And Devon Achane, who was phenomenal and electric as a rookie and scored a touchdown in week 1, is probably going to be a game-time decision. So you're looking at rookie Jalen Wright, one of their high draft picks, is potentially having to get a lot of play. Though that's concerning when you know that Buffalo is going to focus on trying to find ways to slow down Tyreek and Jalen Waddle.
I think one of the things that the Dolphins are so good at is creating explosive plays, right? And I think we saw that with Tyreek on the outside. The one problem with explosive plays is when you are facing a premier quarterback, the whole point is limit his time on the field. Let's limit his possessions, right? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times, defensively, we're in with our coordinators. It's like, okay, this is our game plan when we're playing one of these top guys is we need to keep him on the sideline. I mean, the best way to stop these elite quarterbacks is not let them throw the ball or create. Yeah. I think who do the Dolphins go to create rhythm type football where they can have sustained drives and not have to rely on Tyreek Hill hitting an 80-yard touchdown pass.
Yeah. It's a good point, Mark, and it's a reason why they struggled, I think, in week 1 in the first half. Tua chewed them out at halftime. The way they were playing, the way they were blocking, the way they were running routes. I mean, they were not happy with their offense. Part of it is they didn't have any success running the football in week 1. I mentioned Achane. He had success catching the ball in the backfield, but they didn't run the ball well in week 1. I don't see a formula, unless it's just all explosive plays and they have one of those nights where they can't run the football and win a game like this. Like, they have to be able to at least sustain, as you mentioned, sustain drives, run the ball, have those opportunities. Achane would be the perfect guy, but again, he's a game-time decision. Now, I will say it seems like he's trending more toward playing. Mostert's out, so how much Achane can kind of carry the load along with a rookie? I mentioned Jalen Wright. What you have there, didn't play in week 1. It's a big question, but their offensive line actually held up okay in week 1. It's going to be a little different this time around, but it held up okay in week 1. And obviously, if they give Tua time in McDaniel's system, he finds those guys. At some point, one of those big plays does happen.
Yeah, it's important in week 1, them holding up Josh Allen, Josh Hines-Allen, Trayvon Walker, Eric Armstead. That was a really good defensive line that they were facing. And you did point out Jalen Wright didn't play week 1. I mean, when I saw him being inactive, I said, oh, okay, that was a rookie with a lot of hype. I guess they don't like what they see from him now. But from what you've seen over the summer, Will, and what you've heard about Jalen Wright and camp talking to the players, is that a guy that they can depend on, especially if they need him this Thursday, which it sounds like?
Man, he gave the same vibes, and I know camp is different. I understand. You see guys in camp. There's always these camp guys, and then they don't. You see them in season, they're not quite there when they're playing top talent, first team talent. But he looked phenomenal in camp throughout the summer. He was there. He was working hard. He was getting stronger. Every player to a man, the veterans that saw him said, "Man, this kid can fly. This kid can move." Similar things they were saying to Devon Achane last year, and Achane ended up backing it up with his play on the field. He was great as a rookie and made some electric plays. I think they foresee a situation where Wright can be that way. Maybe not as powerful. Achane showed a lot more power in between the tackles than I thought many expected for a speedster. But again, the playmaking ability, a lot of Mike McDaniel's offense is when you get in space, go. That's why people joke that the Dolphins are like a track team. When they get in space, they go. Wright has the potential to be that kind of 1-2 punch now with Mostert out with Achane.
When you have an elite quarterback like Josh Allen, you're always wondering, okay, who are we going to throw the ball to? They go out and get Keon Coleman in the draft, and obviously Mac Hollins. What did you see from kind of the wide receivers and the support staff around Josh Allen that could indicate, hey, man, this could be a real threat team going in late into January into the playoffs?
Yeah, it's funny too, Mark, is that I thought the same thing. I looked at their roster. Like, you cover a team like I cover the Dolphins and others, and vice versa. Bills media and fans looking at the Dolphins, and the one thing I said was, okay, so who is he going to throw to? I mean, these guys are all NFL receivers, but there isn't like a number one. And then at the end of the day, you look and he spread the ball around, and guys made plays, and you still got a veteran like Curtis Samuel who's there as well. I mean, they have guys that are capable and potentially even more than just capable. They can make big plays. And he's so special that it goes back to the containment. When he starts running around and having time to find guys, he's just so dangerous, and having that weapon it makes everybody better, right? And that's the question. I do think this is going to be an early season test for them. How capable are his receivers? When you got Jalen Ramsey potentially locking down one side of the field and Kendall Fuller the other. The Dolphins really like their third quarter and Kader Kohu. What do you have there from a receiver that can make a play in a big game like this I think we're going to find out about what that receiving core is all about now.
It'll be a big test. And even looking back on the Dolphins receiving core, like, Will, we can't talk about the Dolphins without looking back to Sunday and what Tyreek Hill went through before the game. Yeah. People that have seen it, he was pulled over. It was careless driving and, put his window up, cops overreact, yanked him out of the car. And then he went out and scored an 80-yard touchdown. But we saw Calais Campbell, Geno Smith, being involved in it, and not in a negative way, but like being put in handcuffs and all that. But where does this stand right now? Like, how is Tyreek Hill and how is this team overall, this locker room, as they try to move past something that was so traumatizing to happen to one of their guys?
I'll tell you this, guys. I've been covering this team 26 years, and it's always drama around the Dolphins. There's always something. This team from the early days, there's always something going on. In this case, it took a more serious tone because it involved, obviously, what happened to Tyreek, and then two teammates come to his defense, and one of them gets cuffed, and Calais Campbell. This week out of camp, being there Monday, being there Tuesday, Tyreek spoke today as well. There's been a lot of emotion, and it's hard in a short week. When you play Sunday, you can sort of compartmentalize and move on slowly. I mean, they got a game tomorrow, and all of it has been around that. Guys have backed each other. Mike McDaniel's talked about how proud he is of guys sticking up for each other. Tua talked yesterday about, look, this is a serious topic. We want to continue to attack it, talk to local police, law enforcement, find ways to bridge the gap and bring good out of this. But they've all said the same thing. We got a football game. So it's hard. I defer to a guy like Mark who played and others who played. Like, hey, when you're in the locker room, you got a game, and then you got outside stuff. You could call it distractions. You can call it life issues. It's very hard. I mean, these guys are human. But they've said all the right things. They seem focused. And I guess the fact that they're playing a team that they haven't beat much the last few years probably helps them refocus better because they know the narrative. Tua said it yesterday. Look, man, we know the narrative that we can't beat the Bills. And until we start beating them, that narrative's not going to go away.
Yeah, Mark, how do you do that?
Go ahead.
No, say, Mark, how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, so, like, here's the thing, right? So when you're in the locker room, certain guys just have more things that are off the field that are distractions, right? Or just not distractions, but endorsement opportunities. Like, there's certain guys that have a different life than the rest of the 70% of the guys in the locker room. That's just so. I think I would be interesting. Like, how big was it for the Miami fan base, for even the players in the locker room and the coach, that they got to see the body cam footage? They got to see what actually happened because, I mean, to be completely honest, when you first see it, right? The headline, Tyreek Hill gets arrested for speeding outside the stadium. I got to admit, my first thing was, man, again, like he's getting in trouble again. Yeah. And like that's, there has to be some sort of that in that Miami Dolphins fan. But like, this is our best player. Like, you got to stop getting in trouble. Like, what is it saying? Liar, liar. Like, stop breaking the law. But then when you see the body cam footage, you realize that no matter what happened before that, whether he was going 100 miles an hour, whether he was going 20 miles an hour, everything before that almost doesn't matter as much because it was handled so egregiously by the police. And, a few years back with the George Floyd incident and all that, like, I think America really saw that, hey, look, this doesn't have to be an underprivileged person that this happens to. This could be the guy who we watch every Sunday. Like that, like how could these police officers not know who that is? Right? Like, or maybe they did and didn't care. I think having that body cam footage and actually seeing what happened, how did that maybe change the narrative in Miami?
Oh, it did. And I look, to your point, Mark, and it's the truth. Look, Tyreek has had issues with the law before and has had issues in his personal life before. But this goes beyond that because you hear it, you say, okay, what happened with Tyreek now? Then you watch the video like, oh, this is not about Tyreek. And to your point, there was a reference in the body cam video where the officer said under his breath, oh, that's Tyreek Hill. That's Tyreek. Like, they knew very early it was him. So the way it escalated, the way it happened, it was just unnecessary. And I think to see Tyreek go through that, again, it does point out that it could happen to a superstar. It could happen to a guy walking down the street. And the Dolphins are very much aware of that. Now, I will say this. I don't know where he gets – I guess he's just so talented. But to go out then to go out, and I think it was Teron Armstead who said that Tyreek walked to the locker room with this anger of what he just went through. And how can he not be? You get cuffed, you get thrown on the ground. There's a rage in you when you're finally free that, like, holy cow, that we haven't experienced. I've never experienced. I can only imagine. And then he goes out and he gets 100 yards and a touchdown and helps his team win the game. It's nuts. I don't even know how he does it. But the players feel like it's not going to be a distraction, an issue within. If anything, it's going to bond them to move forward to try to do things together outside of the football field. And that's been the message all weekend. Honestly, guys, win or lose tomorrow, I really don't think that what happened outside will impact anything that happens on the field tomorrow night.
That's a great point. That's a reflection of the leadership they have in that Miami locker room. He's Will Manso, sports director of WPLJ down in Miami. Will, appreciate you so much for hopping on the show and talking Dolphins with us, man.
My pleasure. Anytime, guys.
Thanks, Will. So, Mark, I mean, interesting everything he points out about the Dolphins. And I know, we've spoken about it. He broke it down. I loved your input on that. But before I let you go, man, we got to talk about Saturday. We covered Thursday. We covered Sunday. We have to talk about Saturday. Your BC Eagles, ranked number 24 in the country, going out to Mizzou, top 10 ranked, both teams 2-0. But what are you looking at in this matchup? Of course, you with the background of being an All-American at Boston College, but also a guy with ACC Network. I know you're just so deep in everything with this conference and your alma mater.
Yeah, well, first of all, this makes me happy. Right? We are on a Boston sports talk show, and we're talking BC football.
Right.
I do feel like when you get that ranking, that number next to your school name, like it's almost an obligation to be like, oh, well, we got to mention BC now. And I think they are feeling it there, right? Talking to some of the players and stuff, like they feel the excitement. Like they love it. So if you're a Boston fan and you want to impact games, because pro players aren't going to listen to anything you say. If you give some positive stuff to these college kids, they're going to listen to everything and they're going to vibe off that. So let me do that right now. I feel like Bill O'Brien has done a phenomenal job since getting there. When he first got there, I sat down with him in his office and kind of talked through, hey, what's your plan for this team? Like where are you going to go? What changes are you going to make? And he said all the right things, right? He said, hey, I'm going to bring in this guy to do this. I'm going to bring in this guy to do this. And those guys that were this guy, they are pro coaches. These are professional football coaches. Like Tim Lewis, you get Tim Lewis as your defensive coordinator. That's ridiculous. And then, you get Bill O'Brien running the offense. I mean, so I think that what they have done, they said, look, we are going back to a pro-style football offense. We are going to, like I started this show off, we're going to look old school. We're going to run the football. We are going to have play action passes. We are going to have a lot of counter schemes. We are going to have pullers. We're going to have double team blocks up front. And there are certain schools where that would be a detriment to their progress. If you did go and do that at Miami, that Mario Cristobal tried to do that in his first year at Miami. It was not successful because the players that they can recruit in Miami are more apt to being successful in a spread style offense where you can create big plays, get them out in space. BC, when you look at when they have been good and their recruiting base, it is Northeast. I mean, you win Philadelphia, you win New Jersey, you win all of Massachusetts, you win New York, and you get some big uglies from New Hampshire and Vermont. And then you put this team together and you say, okay, great, we have all these big, tough guys. Let's spread them out and get them the ball in space. That doesn't work. What you do, you press them all together, and you say, all right, stop this wave that we're coming at you with. And I think that's what BC has done offensively. And then the buy-in on defense, you mentioned it was mentioned a few times already, of when the Patriots defense came out, they gave different looks. They gave disguises on the back end. They were trying to fool the opposing quarterback. Well, that's what BC is doing. I mean, they are rotating coverage. They're going all over the place, and they're confusing these quarterbacks. And so I'm excited to see what they're going to do versus Mizzou. I have them winning that game. I think they're going to surprise the nation even more this weekend.
Yeah, I love watching Carter Davis, Kerry Johnson work in that secondary, and then some of the guys that get up on the defensive line, like Cam Horsley as well. What to you says that they can pull off this upset, going out to Missouri, being in Columbia, Mizzou ranked number 6 in the country, and with the defense that hasn't let up a touchdown yet, but yes, a defense that's also faded Murray State and Buffalo.
It is the film. It's just the film. BC looks like a better football team on film than Missouri does, and they've been battle tested. This is the first time Mizzou is going to play any player that has been recruited to a Power 4 school. That's this weekend, and they're going to be in for it.
I'm excited to see Thomas Castellanos in that environment. And that's a guy that's been sometimes would have to put on the Superman cape, but as you mentioned it, Mark, because of what Bill O'Brien does and that system that they brought, they've turned him into a refined passer and just a damn good quarterback. I can't wait, man. Saturday, it's exciting for the hype to be in the area. Mark, it was exciting to have you on this show, man. What do you think? Your first time on Foxboro Rush?
Hey, it was fun, baby. I had a great time. I hope I did BC and New England proud.
You did it all
Charlestown proud.
Exactly. Hey, just two townies hanging out on Rush. I'll see you soon enough. We're going to grab a bite over by Sully's or at Monument. I'll see you there.
All right, take care.
He's Mark Herzlich. I'm George Balekji. This is Foxboro Rush. Thanks so much for tuning in. Please make sure to like, download, subscribe, rate, review wherever you get your podcast, and watch us and subscribe on Nesson's YouTube and Twitch as well. We'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.